And welcome, YouTube audience. Looks like we are legit live. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Congratulations on realizing it exists. Hopefully you're using us as your source for space weather content, because we just make the world's most comprehensive daily space weather videos, whether the SDO site's down or not. Anyway, today we're going to talk a little bit about fitness before we get into space weather and maybe some earth weather. But in any case, fitness. Let's briefly talk about fitness. Now, just to even more briefly go over my credentials here, I became a world-class middle distance runner in the mid-1990s. I wasn't expecting that. I was actually training to play football. Yes, I'm a defensive back, but I ended up taking up cycling instead. I noticed that my 2-mile times were literally podium level times for the world championships for the 2-mile. That's a 2-mile running, that is. And, that made me realize that I could do it as a cyclist, right? I could be a world-class, if you're a world-class runner, you could probably be a world-class cyclist and vice versa. So anyway, I noticed that, and that caused me to take up the sport of mountain bike racing instead. So in 1997, I made my endurance sport debut on the mountain bike at Camp Mac Boy Scout Camp in Brickerville, Pennsylvania. It's an amazing course. It's very difficult if you've never ridden Pennsylvania mountain bike trails. Brickerville, Pennsylvania's got some, shall we say, challenging courses. Now, my home trails are actually just as hard, if not harder, some of them. So, I have those technical skills on the bike. I have Batman-like bike handling skills. By 1999, I became a pro mountain biker, and cycling became my profession. I would get hit by a car later that year, missed the 2000 season, road debut in 2001, and then since then I've only raced road and track. I may do some off-road events in 2026, and I'll just say this. Getting paid, being a pro athlete, right, getting paid to ride a bike or do whatever sport you do might seem like a utopia. It does certainly create a lot of accountability, which is great for some people. But, getting paid to do a sport is not necessarily a utopia, because it adds a lot of pressure. Some people can't handle that, all right? I can shoot a foul shot when people are yelling at me, but not everybody can. So, I thrive under maximum pressure conditions. That just makes me show up and do better. And what I'm getting at about fitness is that a lot of people out there listening to David Goggins, right? David Goggins is great if you're already an athlete. If you're somebody who's like just starting your fitness journey and you have no idea what you're doing, listening to somebody like David Goggins who's just like, keep going, just keep pushing it, go run 50 miles, that kind of stuff isn't necessarily good for you, okay? Pro athletes do all kinds of unhealthy things in order to reach the goals that we set for ourselves, right? So sometimes you've trained for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, whatever, to do one specific thing that might not even take very long, right? If you're doing the pursuit on the track, that's a 4-minute long event if you're fast, right? So you could train for years to do a thing that takes 4 minutes, win the world championships, and then go, what do I do now? That happened to a guy a few years ago. He was like, oh man, when he wins the world championships, he puts his arms up for about 2 seconds, and then you see him looking down, deep in thought, riding around the track on his victory lap, and he didn't look very happy because he was like, oh crap, now what do I do, right? And the point is, if you're trying to count your steps throughout the day, you got to reach whatever number of steps you have set, okay? Maybe you don't feel well that day, right? Like maybe you overdid it the day before and you need to do like a recovery pace walk. Never underestimate the value of the leisurely stroll, okay? You're not a machine. So, just pushing out all of those steps is not necessarily going to be the best thing for you. That might cause your fitness to actually decline. Because if you don't recover, right, then, you're going to see fitness losses instead of fitness gains. It's super, like, recovery is more important than your training, because since it takes about 5 weeks for a major training cycle to actually have its effects on you, that's over a month of recovery time. So, if you do a 5 hour bike ride on Saturday, you're not going to receive all the gains from that until over a month later. And that's if you do all the right things, the right nutrition, the right amount of sleep, the right recovery processes, the right higher intensity stuff mixed in there. Like, you have to have all that stuff right, or you're not going to get the gains that you ought to get. If you just keep going out there and beating on yourself and beating on yourself, you're just going to be permanently slow. All right, you know what I mean? Your body's not going to have the ability to create the muscle and the connective tissue that it needs. I mean, ask Bo Jackson. Anybody remember Bo Jackson from the late 80s? He had, I think he had 3 total hip replacements. He had both of them. He got back to sports again, and then he retired and he got another hip replacement, I think. And it's basically because he built muscle far too fast. You build muscle too fast, you'll rip yourself apart. That's one of the dangers of being strong. If your quads are too strong versus your hamstrings, you might blow your knee out because of it. Like, that's a thing. So you have to have this sort of incremental approach to things, and you have to have the patience with your own biology to receive the gains that you've achieved by doing the activities that you're prescribed to do. Sometimes you have to, alter those activities. And the rule of thumb is, if you've got something hard planned for the day and halfway through you realize that you're not up to par that day, right? Your heart rate variability is messed up, or there's some stat that you're looking at that doesn't look right. You don't just do the whole workout. You shorten the workout. You lower the intensity. So, if you're in recovery mode, right, do the number of steps that you're supposed to do throughout the day, but do them really slowly. Do it as a leisurely stroll, not a power walk. You'll feel completely differently, okay? When you're doing recovery stuff, you should pretty much feel good the whole time. You shouldn't really feel fatigued at all. So anyway, just monitor your heart rate variability, and listen to yourself when things are breaking down for you, because you want your fitness to go up, not down. And winter is the most challenging time for that. So that's just a little bit of a fitness rant for you there. If you ever have questions about, changing your fitness plan around, stuff like that, hit me up. I'll consider helping you out. This stuff is second nature to me at this point. So you got questions about nutrition, about rest, all that stuff, hit me up. I'll help you out to some limited extent. Now, I do plan to get a coaching cert, at least a level 1 cycling coach cert, early in 2026. So that's coming. And I'm also promoting a 24-hour race. So if you want to ride your bike for 24 hours, the first weekend in January, we're promoting an event. 24 hours of the Bob Rodale Park. All right. It's January 9th, 12 noon, January 9th until 12 noon, January 10th. That's a Friday and a Saturday, the first weekend in January. Winter gets boring. So we want to have interesting things to do. There's going to be a companion Rouvy event. So if you have a stationary trainer and you have Rouvy, you'll be able to do the virtual 24 hours of Bob Rodale. I'm going to do it outside if we can get the permitting and the other infrastructure required. Now, it's barely a month away. It's only a month and a day away from now. So it's, today is December 8th, and the event is Friday, January 9th into Saturday, January 10th. From noon to noon. That's the time to do it. You want to start when it's very bright and sunny out, and then you want to ride all through the night. I mean, I was thinking about this, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to break it into 3-hour segments. I'm going to try to make it through each 3 hour segment, 8 of them, 8 3 hour segments. But one of those will be no riding, like one of those 8 hour segments, the second or third last one, there'll be no riding at all. It'll be for sleep. Now, not all 24-hour events require that. I don't think we're going to require that anybody stop at any point. But there's ample space in the park at which we're planning to do the event that we should be able to have lights, and maybe we'll be able to get like bands to play at 3 a.m. Who knows? It should be interesting because the park is in a desolate and secluded enough area that we can cast a bunch of light and make a bunch of noise all through the night. So I sent a Facebook message to our new club president from Lehigh Valley Cycling Club today. Shout out to Bert Muckalainen. Congratulations on your presidency in the Lehigh Valley Cycling Club, the Lehigh Valley's largest cycling club with over 4,000 members. So there's a lot of stuff going on to increase the number of rides and ride leaders in 2026, and that's part of it. So figured I would just drop that info for you because, ultra events are interesting, and that seems like a great way to start the year out, right? If you want to keep your fitness up throughout the winter, you got to keep doing more interesting things. You got to cross train and so on. So anyway, let's talk space weather. Do I have my tabs open already? The answer is no, I don't. So give me a moment here, and I will get the Smash News Network, Least Busted Name and News rolling. And we'll get this little test pattern off the screen for you here and some solar data on the screen. Pardon my voice, still suffering from a little bit of pharyngitis. All right, so what do we have? Let's take a look at the closest star here. We're going to show 94 angstroms from the GOES 19. 94 angstroms from the GOES 19, yes. That's going to show us any likely flare spots. So let's take a look at that. There is our ionized iron view there, 94 angstroms. Great at showing active regions and flaring. Can make that a little bigger, I guess. That's good enough. All right, perfect. I'm just going to separate this tab briefly so I can prepare the other tabs for all of our YouTube pals. Bear with me a quick minute here. And how was your weekend, viewers? We want to know, so let us know in the comments whether you're viewing live or viewing in syndication. All right, so some space weather stats for you here. Starting with the sunspot number. So here's our sunspot number. That is quite a lot of sunspots here. We've actually had an increase in the sunspot number, according to the Royal Observatory Belgium. Just under 200 sunspots. So that's pretty cool. They haven't been super active with flaring, but the radial flux, as depicted here by this black line from solon.info/solar, radial flux now at 220 SFU. That's solar flux units. Next, we'll look at the GOES 19 coronagraph here. We did detect a CME, likely Earth-directed, late in the day on Saturday. So there is another Earth-directed CME on the way. That's going to be here late today into early tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, our U.S. viewers may have the opportunity to see some mid-latitude aurora. I don't think it's going to be a major impact. We'll probably see something like KP5 to KP6 at the most. It depends on the magnetic field, orientation and intensity ultimately. But there will be a strike. There was another Earth-directed CME. Now let's take a look at the more recent data here. Again, late Saturday night, there was an M-class flare. And that flare was accompanied by a coronal mass ejection that is earthly directed. So I don't know if it's a direct shot. I don't think it is a direct shot, but we're going to look at the Huxley forecast in a minute. But first, this coronagraph. And there may be more Earth-directed ejecta here because we do see quite a bit of activity. Like right in here, that could be a quite recent CME with Earth-directed components, but I don't think so. It looks far side from here. We'll look at stereo A also. Here's the last 24 hours, I think. Let's see what you got there, stereo A. That's fine. Will it play? There we go. So here's late yesterday. That's 1800 on Sunday evening Universal Time. And then some missing data. And then some, there could be Earth-directed ejecta there. So that's good. See that CME right there? That probably has an Earth-directed component. That's sort of in the right orientation. So I think that's another earthly directed CME. So one arriving late in the day, probably more like early in the day tomorrow. So it might be too late to actually show up. The one from Saturday night, that is, probably, it might be too late to show up for tomorrow. I'll get to your comments here in just a minute. But this more recent one, that's going to arrive. Let's see. We see it on the stereo A coronagraph here. It's coming out early in the day today. So here it is with the time and date stamps. This is the latest CME that's earthly directed. That is just after midnight. That must have popped off. So we can expect that to show up early in the day on Wednesday. So good times, good times. Space weather is headed our way. It's what you like to see. So next is our space weather enthusiast dashboard. NOAA's forecast. You see, NOAA is indeed forecasting. There you go. NOAA agrees. So there we go. I didn't look at their forecast until just now, but NOAA agrees. There you go. CME impact's coming. And another one will be in the forecast for the 11th. So that's cool for space weather. Next, moving to the real-time solar wind. Current conditions are, let me just press refresh here to make sure we do have the latest. Active spacecraft is the ACE. Solar wind is very diffuse at less than 1 proton per cubic centimeter, only about a half a proton per cubic centimeter, or 1 proton per every 2 cubic centimeters. That works. That's called unreducing fractions. Solar wind velocity here is quite nominal at just under 400 kilometers per second. The rest of that is unremarkable. No solar energetic particle events. Let me just pan up a little bit here. Tilt up, I should say. So a minor solar energetic particle event there. It's close to baseline, but there was a little bit of an SEP, probably because of some activity on that western limb, which we'll show in a minute. Next, the X-ray flux. All right, we did have an M-class event this morning. Oh, that's an X-class event. Nice. An X-class event. Fantastic. Let's zoom in here. We'll show the one-day graph instead. And then we'll zoom in even further. So just barely an X-class event there, and X 1.14 happened just after 5 a.m. this morning, 5:01 Universal Time, an X-class flare. Next, we'll look at the magnetic environment here. Here's our top view ecliptic plane field plot. Earth has been in the South Pole magnetic sector, and it looks like that has been consolidated. We saw some coronal holes moving around, or you could say closing, or perhaps opening late last week. And while we show that graphic, let me get to your comments. Thanks for leaving a comment, Retro Doomsday. And thanks for leaving comments, Mike, although I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know why you're talking about racks. That was not mentioned in this stream. Now, as far as Enlil spirals, yeah, we didn't show the Huxley forecast. Thanks for calling me out on it. So here it is. And you can see a number of CMEs propagating there from University of Reading. Let me just press refresh there. I want to make sure we have the latest. Some sites auto refresh and some don't, so we get rid of that as a variable. So there you go. CMEs. There's your Enlil spiral. We only show one of these, and as you can see, two of those are quite earthly directed, as we just stated earlier in the stream. So it's always good when the experts agree on this stuff. Wouldn't you agree? Anyway, here's some more data for you. Here's our line of sight coronal hole plot. Let's just look at today instead of 4 days worth. So there's what the coronal hole situation is. As you can see, the field, it looks all fanned out here. And that is because Earth is very much solidly in a South Pole magnetic sector of the heliosphere. Currently, the heliosphere is governed by the magnetism of South Pole-oriented coronal holes, as shown here in red. Next, we'll look at the magnetogram. Now we're looking at the photosphere level. And how about, what's the newest? Cerro Tololo, Chile. We're going to just look at today's data. So there is December 8th. So the most likely place to see large solar flares is 100% certainly this group. So this is becoming increasingly likely to produce additional X-class events, and I suspect that the X-class event that happened today came from this group. Can anybody verify? I haven't been on any, quote, social and, quote, media, so I really have no idea, but this will probably show us our red light view, 677 nanometers. Let's zoom way in. And we're actually gonna load just today here, since that's when the flare happened. So those sunspot groups are mostly stable. No major changes happening there. But as they get closer and closer to the limb, they become more and more likely to produce large solar flares. So eyes on these regions here for additional solar flares. Also, the likelihood of SEPs, solar energetic particle events, is going up because most of those come from that western limb. Now, if we look at the eastern limb, down here in the southeast, we do have new sunspots forming. So sunspot number may continue to climb here as the rest of these groups look largely stable. No major growth, no major shrinkage, but over here we do have a new group forming right here. So we may see a little uptick in the sunspot number today as a result of that. Those are the facts. Moving on to the hydrogen alpha imagery, we should be able to see the lifting off of a filament. Let's show once again Cerro Tololo. Hopefully they had clear skies. And this time we are going to show the full run because it shows yesterday plus today. Actually, let's just show today. The hydrogen alpha view is great at showing filaments. Now, you see these dark areas here, folks? These dark areas, these are actually absorption features. So the hydrogen alpha wavelength, it's showing you these bright spots. These are areas that are very high in hydrogen, okay? These areas here are very low, low in hydrogen. And that is because the molecular soup, the atomic soup that is in these filaments is much richer. There are a lot more chemicals in these areas besides hydrogen. And so they show up as absorption features. And that's basically how we're able to see these filaments, all right? These filaments are essentially blocking us from seeing the hydrogen that's closer to the surface of the sun. And when you see these dark features here, these look like this if you were looking at it from the side, but from Earth's view, it's a two-dimensional view. It looks flat. It is not. These are bumpy areas. We'll talk more about bumpy areas here in a minute. 195 angstroms shows you a lot of that variation. So let's briefly show that. Let me get to your comments here while we show these gorgeous views of the closest star. Oh, Wayne's World quotes. Cheers. Yeah, greetings, Retro Doomsday. Thanks for leaving the comments, both of you. And may all your battles be well-chosen victories. All right, so back to hydrogen alpha. Let's load some more images here, actually. We're going to look at yesterday and today. Now, I don't particularly see any of those filaments lifting off, but you don't always see a filament lifting off, folks. Sometimes there's plasma that's like right next to a sunspot that you literally can't see at all, because if you have a thing that's like this, but it's pointed at you, you know what I mean? You don't really see it. So sometimes it's very deceptive. Sometimes you see a filament just kind of come out of nowhere, and that's not because it just spontaneously appeared there necessarily. It could just be because it was there, but you couldn't really see it because of the two-dimensional nature of looking at a thing 93 million miles away. So anyway, that's yesterday plus today. A great view there of plasma filaments. In some ways, that's actually even better than the SDO imagery, because the SDO does not use hydrogen alpha. It only uses certain extreme ultraviolet. And then, of course, the HMI instrument is looking at the photosphere. So that's looking below what you're seeing here, which is the corona. Anyway, here is our electron flux, and we are remaining around stormy electron flux levels. Expect GPSs to have significant errors due to all of these electrons. So what I'm saying is your GPS satellite is 23,000 miles of altitude, 26,000 miles, I think, actually. And it's measuring the electron flux way down here at the D region. Anyway, when your satellite has to communicate through a lot of free electrons, you get signal refraction. That's how it works. And let's show the ionosphere briefly here and get this thing to a close, because my voice is not holding out. My voice is shattered. As it gets lower and lower, I become more and more like a cartoon villain. So let's take a look at the ionosphere here, courtesy of Australian Government Bureau Meteorology. It's showing vibrational frequency in megahertz. That's millions of vibrations per second. And it's showing the D layer of the ionosphere. That's the layer we pay the most attention to because it's where the electron flux usually is located. However, when geomagnetic storms caused by CME impact and coronal holes happen, that becomes erroneous data. Anyway, that's the ionosphere in raw vibrational frequency. We'll also show the anomalygram after that plays all the way through. There's anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. Give that a minute to load, I guess. Oh, we got 1 hour per second here. My bad. Hold on. I want to show these at the same speed. 2 hours per second. I would also note, in addition to the South Atlantic anomaly being out here by the equator off the coast of South America, the African anomaly is kind of right on the equator as well. You can see right there, there is a second low spot, a second weak spot on Earth's magnetosphere kind of right in here. And you can really see great where that is. So right on the equator here, both the South Atlantic anomaly is now in the Pacific, and the African anomaly you can easily see right there is where that's located. As you can see, there's big shear there. High frequency and low frequency anomalies right next to each other. That is a bumpy ionosphere. When satellites grow through there, they experience big variations in the amount of charging that they receive due to free electrons. And that's what causes your GPS errors, folks. Moving right along to Earth weather. Let's take a look at the sunrise over planet Earth. Since we got access to these fantastic satellites, why not use them? Here's what planet Earth's looking like from now. I mean, how awesome is technology, folks? You can just look at a view like this anytime you want. And the crazy part is, just like most people don't know how to drive a car, most people don't know how to forecast their weather. Why? You have access to more information than you could possibly need to forecast your weather. All you got to do is understand, like, high school level physics, I guess. Junior high physics, maybe, depending on, like, how scholastically apt your school is. But, like, everybody can forecast your weather, folks. You've got access to a lot more data than you need. And shout out to our viewers from all around that blue globe. We're going to show the water vapor map for the U.S., as this gives more insight than perhaps anything besides maybe the jet stream. But this will even give you insight into what the jet stream's doing if you understand the physics. If you don't understand the physics, you can't forecast your weather, but if you do, maybe you can. We hope you can. And we'll show you how to on the channel. Because it's 2025, folks. Knowledge and information is free. So acting like something like weather forecasting is a trade secret is just ridiculous. I mean, you can certainly forecast your weather. So ask how. Ask how. If you've got weather coming into where you're located, ask why the forecast is what it is, and we'll show you. Look at the moisture coming into the West Coast. We're going to actually show the goes west here for once. Here we go. We're going to show the goes west because look at the crazy amount of moisture here coming out of the Pacific. This is an atmospheric river if ever there was one. I mean, look at that Bonsai Express, folks. That is an insane amount of moisture coming right up to Canada and then making a 90-degree right turn. So Montana, look at all the moisture. That is bonkers. Bonkers. Yeah, the water vapor map will show you what is not evident on your radar. Okay? So there's cold Arctic air mixing in there very clearly. We're going to actually go to the even more zoomed out view. We're going to show the that goes west full disk. So you can see the Arctic air plunging down into Canada, into the US, making it both very cold and very, very snowy. Look at that. That is berserk right there. As this collides with this dry mass of air in front of it, that's creating a storm front. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that is just a violent, violent collision. So there's an atmospheric waterfall above a lot of people's heads right now. And there you can see on the radar the precipitation for the US. So that's what's going on. Let's take a look at windy.com to show temperature. And it's a little cold in Ottawa right now, -2 degrees Fahrenheit. Dag. Toronto, 10 degrees. Kitchener, -1. Erie, Pennsylvania, 23 degrees, not that bad. It's actually warmer than this here, so these might be a little bit low. Keep in mind, folks, most temperature data is going to be behind like an hour or two. So in the morning, it's going to show a little lower than it really is, and in the afternoon, it's going to show it a little higher than it really is as the sun drops in the sky. But that's what's going on. And dude, look at the Arctic air just plunging down into the US. Here's your pressure map. That's going to give you an idea of what is in control of these systems. And basically, very strong lows here in the North Atlantic, making for some high seas. Do we actually have waves on this? I don't know if we have waves here. Hold on. Oh, we do have waves. Look at this. Look at the freaking North Atlantic is not a place to go sailing today. Dag. So how about some 27-foot waves just south of Greenland? Not a day to go on a fishing expedition out here in the middle of the North Atlantic. 27-foot waves make for not very fun conditions, folks. Dag. That is bonkers. Let me get to your comments here. I see more comments have come in, and thanks to those who have left them. We always appreciate that. Now we're going to zoom way out. Are those the world's largest waves? I think they actually are. Save for maybe these Pacific waves, but they're pretty similar. They're 27-footers in several wintry locations, folks. Any requests for other weather data? We'll actually show the satellite here because windy.com has a great satellite feature. It's just beautiful. So we'll show it. We'll show some more solar imagery, and then we'll close this thing out. Yes, people are definitely at an idiocracy level of gibberish. I mean, right now, the ignorance to availability of knowledge ratio is the highest it's ever been in the history of mankind. We have more cultists now than we've ever had before. I mean, there are people that are in multiple cults at the same time, and it's just crazy. I mean, the arguments that happen everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, are just ridiculous and pathetic. Like, people argue about stuff that they could easily look up in 10 seconds and like get the actual answer to it, but they'll just argue anyway and be like, that's what they want you to think. It's insane. It's totally nuts. And before we close this out, let's just briefly define a cult. Since we have more cults than ever before in the history of mankind, It's pretty much, there's no question. I mean, I don't know who could argue. Um, a cult. Okay, what's a cult? One, it has a living leader. That's an important feature of a cult. Um, if it doesn't have a living leader, it's not a cult. Two, the cultists have to believe nonsense. All right, that's a requirement. Think about the Nazis. That's my favorite cult to bring up, okay? World War II Germany, the Nazi Party, that was a cult. Hitler was the leader. It was harmful in that it caused World War II by invading Czechoslovakia, Lithuania, Poland, France, Belgium, Netherlands, etc. And they have to believe nonsense. Did World War II Nazi Party Germans not believe nonsense? Right? Those are the features of a cult. That's it. It's pretty simple. Now, typically what happens with a cult is that it self-destructs because people in the cult realize that they're believing nonsense and they leave. And then eventually the living leader passes away. And then the cult usually goes away. Now, sometimes you get a new leader in place, right? That's how a cult can continue. For example, L. Ron Hubbard founded Scientology, but he created enough of an infrastructure around Scientology that it gets to stay a cult because they still have a living leader, I think, right? Now, not all cults are the same. Not all cult living leaders want to bang all the cult members, but that is a thing. So that's a very common thing, like at the Branch Davidians. Remember the Heaven's Gate cult? That was a great one, right? They had a living leader, a guy who didn't even drink the Kool-Aid. I think he might still even be alive if he's not in prison. Remember the Heaven's Gate cult? There was a comet. Was it Yakutake? Comet Yakutake showed up. They said it's an alien spacecraft. We got to off ourselves in order to, get on the alien spacecraft with our souls or something. So yeah, the Heaven's Gate cult. They believed nonsense. They had a living leader. It was harmful. I mean, it was very famous. They had like black and silver Nikes or something. So yeah, cults, more of them now than have ever before existed on the planet. Certainly. And they're all so obvious. I just can't believe that there are people that are in multiple cults at the same time. I mean, like, they believe so much nonsense. You couldn't make this stuff up. Babylon Bee could not write reality right now. And strangely enough, Babylon Bee has been writing reality. Some of the stories that Babylon Bee has created as parody of reality have come true. They've forecasted the current insanity. Now, AI is largely to blame for this crap because the NASDAQ companies are overvalued. Everybody just keeps investing in NASDAQ companies like it's just fine. Oh, everything's fine. All of these companies like Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, Twitter. Actually, Twitter's a private company now. They're not. You don't even get to know what Twitter does anymore because they've been taken private. Like, there's less accountability for Twitter than there is for Meta and for Google. There's less accountability for Twitter than there is for Google and Meta and Microsoft and Apple, because those are publicly traded companies that have to divulge their earnings, how much people are paid, their advertising revenue, their their earnings per share. Like, all of these things have to be reported in a public company. But with a clandestine private company like Twitter, they don't have to report anything. They can mislead advertisers all day. They can mislead end users all day. And you can't know about it because you can't buy their stock. So, like, censorship is actually higher than it was in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, because censorship is now more extreme on Twitter than it was before the Elon Musk era. Accounts are banned just for saying things on Twitter. Accounts that do not toe the political line. Of all the hacks, all the political hacks on Twitter, keep getting accounts banned, like, because they don't agree politically. Is that free speech? Banning accounts for speech? Like, there are so many free speech advocates out there that would gladly silence their opposition. What? The level of negligence is literally criminal. Anyway, we'll close out with some GOES 19 SUVI imagery. Please don't accept any wood and nickels, and please don't believe lies. Have some discernment, folks. Like, if there's warm yellow liquid coming out of somebody's urethra and landing on you, you're getting peed on. It's not rain. Like, understand the difference. Have some discernment. And yo, get off of the goddamn internet. It is more broken than it has ever been in the history of the internet. It's completely screwed up. And it's largely because of companies like ChatGPT and Google and Twitter and Meta and Apple and Microsoft. These companies are ruining the internet. We now have as much activity on the internet from bots as we do from humans. And why is that? It's because the AI junkware is now scouring the internet, wasting server space, wasting bandwidth, wasting storage space, wasting memory, wasting electricity, wasting your fucking time, writing apps that don't work. Show me an app without a bug in it. These companies that are pioneers in AI, these pioneers in AI cannot create a smartphone app that is bug-free. So you trust them to create a future utopia via AI? You're worried about them creating artificial general intelligence when they can't create a bug-free smartphone app? Are you fucking kidding me, yo? Look, when I graduated high school, I was a programmer. My first year of college was computer information science with a math background. I got out of that because I was like, ew, I'm not doing this. This is copy pasting code libraries. This isn't what I thought it was. This is just boring math. This isn't what I thought coding was. I learned to code before I went to kindergarten. I was already coding in BASIC before kindergarten, just so you know. So, like, I'm not your average computer nerd, all right? People that are Generation X like me, we were born at the exact right time. We know more about computers than people that were born in the 60s, and we know more about computers than people that were born in the 90s. We know more about computers than all of those people because we were born at the exact moment that people started to get PCs in their homes. I think the average household had a PC, like the US reached 50% PC ownership in households by like something like 96. So that was kind of the inflection point where the internet became ultra important. Well, that was my second year of college, folks. So I used to use Lycos and Alta Vista and, before the G word existed. And by the way, all the search engines are broken. You know why that is? Because of AI trash all over the internet. All of these AI videos and photos and AI generated posts, you can now prove anything. You can now prove stuff that's not true. because you'll be able to go, look, here's a link. Here's a link that says the ridiculous thing I said is true. Like, you'll be able to convince some dummies that there's a spraying program and that contrails are anything besides water vapor and the exhaust particulates of a plane that are just there incidentally as a result of the plane operating in conditions with enough humidity and the right temperature and pressure to produce a persistent contrail. But guess what? Chemtrails are a cult. The living leader is Dane Wigington. It's harmful because it makes people not understand how weather works or how aircraft tech works. And they believe nonsense. Where are the chemicals? Where are the spraying apparatus? It's all made up. It's complete nonsense. He's cashing in on people's stupidity and ignorance. I'll stop ranting. But the internet is completely broken. Now is a great time to not be on the internet, not to own NASDAQ stocks, and like to watch the bubble just, it's going to deflate. Because AI is artificial and not intelligent. It should be called ANI, artificial non-intelligence. Because all it is some code. There's nothing intelligent about it. It's just code. End of story. Anyway, here's the sun. That's what's going on. We got a massive, massive prominence kicking off right now. Has it already caused an SEP, a solar energetic particle event? Let's zoom in on that because it's crazy. Look at that. Oh, there's a flare there too. So we're very likely to have a solar energetic particle event. If it's not already here. Oh, look at this massive CME. Look at this. This is an earthly directed CME here. Right? Oh, wow. Look at that. Yo, that is legit. This is going to be a major impact. This one right here. Look at this. That is a major earth directed CME right there. There's no way that will all miss Earth. So maybe you heard it here first. We're not always streaming when this happens. But there you go. Hey, thanks, El Sol. Nice timing. A major flare happening right here. A major CME happening up here north of it. It's really two CMEs happening at the same time. What more can you ask for? What a way to start out a week. With a shattered voice. All right, so yeah, that's a great way to end a stream. Look at that CME. It's absolutely massive. Absolutely massive right here. And a major flare and probably an SEP. So this is going to be major, folks. We're going to have 3-4 days here of just impact after it. That's 3 CMEs on the way. And yeah, that's the way I like to start out my space weather week. What about you? Let us know in the comments what you think. That is exciting stuff. And yeah, again, that is earthly directed. Like, it's almost coming out of the center of the solar disk. Watch it play out again. And why it's playing so slowly. It's playing very slowly. Actually, let's look at the flare here in 131 angstroms, because that's a better wavelength through which to view flares. So this will probably look pretty cool too. Give that a minute. I guess there's probably a lot of people looking at the sun right now because flaring CMEs, it's exciting. It's exciting. What can you say? There's no more interesting star to gaze at than that one. Betelgeuse doesn't affect your daily life. Look at that. I'll bet that's an X-class. That's a big flare, folks. Look at that. That's an X-class flare for sure. Dag, that is bonkers. Bonkers, I tell you. What timing? Look at that. That is legit, folks. Dag. What a time to be streaming. Good stuff. Of course, we have had this happen before on the channel because, hey, we used to stream every day. I used to get up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning to do these streams and then go to work, sometimes at work by 5:30. So we've done a little bit of work in the realm of space weather. We did these videos every day for over 6 years. So yeah, it's exciting times for space weather. And this is going to be a major impact. This last one here, this is a major impact. This is not like playing game stuff. This is very much legit. So we're gonna rock this back and forth here just so you can sort of see all the details of this. Multiple events happening here. And the site's loading slowly because a lot of people are probably looking, and they should be. All right, so let's kind of look at a timeline here. So first we have this major prominence on the western limb. Little one on the eastern limb over there on your left. And then a decent sized flare. That's probably an M-class event right there. And that did produce a CME, or it was associated with a CME. So right here you can see a flare happening. That's probably an M-class event. And there is some ejecta there, as you can see. That's not likely earthly directed. That's going to miss Earth to the west. But then that northern group just explodes. Look at that huge filamentary magnetic loop popping out there. You can see it right there. It's still in loop form. And then it just snaps and explodes. Look at that. Boom. Now, it does look like it makes a turn to the west, but that's too late. Some of that ejecta is headed our way. If that's modeled completely off to the west, that's just a bad model. Look at the limb darkening there. This is going to have a major earthly directed component. Don't be surprised to see KP8 or even a KP9 associated with this, because there could be a very strong magnetic field. All right, that was very dense plasma coming out there, and certainly a part of that is going to be directly aimed, not aimed, but directly headed toward Earth. Aimed would suggest that the sun is conscious, and we don't really have any evidence to suggest that the sun is conscious. If it were, I don't know how we would figure it out. So anyway, so a little flare in the southwest and a little CME to the west, and then a major plasma destabilization right here. Earth-directed CME. And then an X-class event. Let's take a look at what those events actually did. So it looks like we don't have any SEPs yet, but don't be surprised to see a major solar energetic particle event here. This is going to be consistent with the phenomenon that would create a major SEP. So that's always interesting. And it looks like the GOES X-ray flux has not... Man, that doesn't look right. I don't know what's up with that. It looks like it's not updated or something. I don't know. I don't understand that. That does not look legit. So I think this is not updated, but Yeah, that is an X-class flare. I mean, you can tell just by looking at that. Look at that. That's clearly an X-class event. And then further plasma stable destabilization up here. So lots of stuff going on, folks. It's time to close this thing out. We're now over an hour. My voice is shattered. And we'll see you soon here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And until next time, may that solar wind be at your back.